This happened to me about 4 years ago. I was coming home from work one day. It was around 6:30, and here in Canada, in the winter months, it's nighttime at this point. I was driving home, street lights are on, and nothing unusual, except as I was leaving work, I saw what looked to me like a little boy in my rearview mirror, about I'd say 50 feet behind me in the middle of the parking lot. Kind of strange, but I didn't pay any attention to it. And as I was driving home, I saw the kid, or at that point, I thought it was a different kid about 3 blocks from where my work is. And he was just staring at me as I drove by. I had a slight chill, and I tried not to think much about it, but it was creepy. I only live about 7 minutes from work, so it didn't take me long to get back home. I didn't see him again until I was about 2 blocks away. This time, he was under a street lamp, so I got a better look at this kid. And to my surprise, it was not a kid at all. In Mexico, we call these creatures duendes. They are usually small fairy-like creatures with the appearance of an old man. Their heights do vary, but I myself have never seen one to be the size of a child. He looked exactly like an old man. As I drove past him, about to turn the corner, I was freaking out at this point, and I just wanted to get home. This thing was following me. As I was on approach to turn the last corner of my house, there he was again. I slammed on the brakes because there it was right in front of my car, just crossing the street. It looked up at me as he was walking past my car, and he gave me the most evil grin I've ever seen. I was about ready to run him over with my car, but was frozen in place. As soon he was on the other side of the street, I gunned it home. But I took one final glance in my rearview mirror to see if he was still behind me. It was gone. It wasn't on the other side of the street or anything. I didn't care, but I was so frightened. I got home, got out of the car, and looked around to see if it was nearby. I was fortunate enough to not see it again. I made sure to look down the street both ways before going into my house. I got in, locked the door, closed the curtain, and tried to forget what I saw. Even my wife knew something had spooked me. I didn't tell her till the following day. I didn't want to scare her at that time. I hope I don't see it again. I grew up mostly in Southwest Arizona, New Mexico. I'm not of Hispanic descent, but have been told numerous times of a gnome named El Duende. Either my friends or their family have told me of the story. Apparently, he is a troll that will come out different times in a Hispanic household. He likes to mess with the children or scare them. I went to my friend's Roman's house one night. He had told me of this phenomena, and I never actually believed it. That was until El Duende actually appeared in his front yard. We were playing outside, and there goes a gnome shadow. My friend actually tried going after it, but I was too freaked out by the incident. After we couldn't see it anymore, he just laughed it off as it were a normal day experience. I was over again a year. I was over again a year later or so later. This time, I was just about to fall asleep in his room, when out of the corner of my eye comes this gnome shadow right into the room. It ran a path to the window and disappeared. I still had my suspicion for many years. Was someone messing with me, or was this the infamous El Duende? I'm a lot older now, and I still hear the story. One night, I was sitting alone in my house when I saw a shadow run by my windows, still, and jump toward the ground. It ran around and even went behind furniture to come out on the other side. I said to myself, dang, that El Duende. What didn't make sense to me was that I don't live in a Hispanic household, and my girlfriend is not of Mexican descent either. I have been very confused, and I still catch glimpses of this troll. Has anyone else experienced this? What type of explanation could there be? Does El Duende wander around your home? What types of stories were you told of El Duende? From the stories I was told, this is a troll that wanders Mexican households. No one of any other race has mentioned this to me ever. I have also watched this show, Fact or Faked, where they show a video of some children freaking out over a gnome shadow. This is where I was reintroduced to the gnome. The gnome in the video looks just like the one I have seen. Now he lurks my house. Not in the forest, but it was late in the evening, quite dark outside, and I was returning home with my mother. There was a stone fence alongside the pathway. It might have been someone's garden or something like that. And right behind it, there were trees planted in a row parallel to the fence. Casually, I look in the direction of those trees, and I suddenly notice a big yellow eye. And here, I mean really big, approximately 1/4 of a meter in diameter, maybe a bit less, staring at me from the trunk of one of those trees. It felt like that eye could see through me, though this did not last long. As I passed by and looked away from it, the eye just disappeared. Next morning, I came back to find which tree that was, since the eye could simply have been a bow, but I could not even find the tree that looked like the one I saw this evening, and there were not many of them, honestly. Well, it is worth noting that I could have forgotten how it looked like. Actually, still, none of the trees there had a bow at the same height and the same place as I saw it that evening. Have no idea what it could have been. Thought it could be something like an Ent from the Lord of the Rings, as I thought at that date. I don't know. We were on this trail in the Cherokee National Forest, which we walked on dozens of times before. As we came around a bend in the trail, we both stopped in our tracks. There was a tree directly ahead of us, about 20 feet. At the base of the tree, I briefly saw the silhouette of the 3 beings. They were around 3 feet tall and very slender, and all of them seemed to be holding a stick or staff in one hand. One was holding a staff, and with the other hand was pointing at something on the ground next to the tree, and all of them were looking at it. It was as though when we rounded the bend, we caught a brief glimpse of them, and they vanished. I did not tell my BF what I had seen, but he went on to describe the exact same thing. So of course, we ran over to the tree to see if we could discover what they were so fascinated by. I didn't expect to see anything but dirt and leaves, but there was actually a neat looking rock sitting right where they had pointed. We love collecting rocks we find while hiking, but we left this one the hell alone. Never expected to see something like this, but the other story is even wilder. My BF met this really interesting older guy at work one day. They became pretty good friends, and when he visited the guy's house for work, he often stayed for hours listening to his stories. We think he once held some sort of high up government office because he has traveled all over the world and has some pretty cool stories to tell, usually involving political intrigue of some sort. My BF had been going over there for over a year when the guy finally decided to tell him the story, as he knew by then that my BF wouldn't laugh at him or think him crazy. It was like he was feeling him out to see if he should tell him or not. When this guy was a child, he and his best friend went exploring some local caves. He said it was a point of honor among the local kids to see how deep into the caves they could go. So he and his friend decided to go further than ever before. After plodding along carefully for around 40 minutes, they were startled to see a light up ahead. They crept along toward the light and found that it was coming from this little room-like structure off to one side of the main cave system. When they peeked around the rock wall, they saw that the light was being emitted from a lantern, and sitting around the lantern in a circle were several small men with beards and strange hats, and they were playing with these huge cards with weird symbols on them, unlike anything the kids had ever seen before. He said these men were incredibly short, and for some reason he remembers that they had these massive buckles on their shoes, just the classic fairy tale image of a dwarf. As intriguing as the scene was, the kids freaked out and ran all the way out of the cave. The dwarfs never even noticed them. The old man told my BF that to this day, his best friend will call him up from time to time just to say, remember that time we saw those little guys in that cave? Just to verify it actually happened all these years later.